and bass up the track a little bit, because I want to hear that booms, booms, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you know the business. Common sense. So with the De La, forget all them playoffs. We the rhyme sayers. Yeah, that's the business. Ha. Go do it like this. Hot. Like that Chicago's.
Hello everybody. Today we are in the much anticipated 2015 Polaris Slingshot. This isn't the S model, but it's still an absolute blast to drive. I don't think the S really gets that much more to the side of aesthetics, but I'm quite excited for this. I took it out the other day, but the weather stopped me from enjoying the thing, so hopefully today we can actually get out into some twisty roads and give this thing some hell, see what it's like. The back tire is relatively worn out. Someone rented it and decided to do some burnouts because these things are very good at that. So the back tire is not in the best shape, but it'll get us through the day, that's for sure. 2.4 liter Ecotec GM motor. Basically it's the same engine out of the Saturn Sky and the Pontiac Solstice. 173 horsepower, 166 foot-pounds of torque, which really doesn't sound like much, but this thing only weighs just over 1,700 pounds, so power to weight ratio is pretty good on the thing. It's a 5-speed manual. Nice shifter, it's got a good link feel to it every time it clicks into gear. It's relatively short throw, nothing crazy. It honestly feels like a GM shifter. Gets more looks than you would imagine, especially with all the Batman stickers on it. It catches quite a few eyes. It's wide, very, very wide. So first thing you notice as soon as you get into it, it's gigantic. It almost takes up the whole lane. It's as wide as a Lamborghini Aventador and basically the same length as a Miata. So the front track grip is just phenomenal on this thing. It's got good low end torque, so it's nice for just those quick boots, but it really doesn't make its peak power till the really high RPMs. You really feel the surge of power just after 5,000, and it redlines at 6,250. The ride's pretty decent. It's pretty firm as you'd expected, but you could rip around this. I think you could actually do a pretty long trip on this thing too. The seats aren't the most supportive. I'm a pretty small guy. Could use a little more bolstering in my opinion, just for the kind of driving that you are going to be doing in this thing. You do hear quite a bit of drivetrain noise from the transmission and everything, but you kind of expect that. You're in an open-wheel vehicle that's basically just bars, a roll cage. It's basically what you're rolling in. Direct competitors are the KTM Crossbow and the Morgan three-wheeler. I wish I could have a chance to take both of them out. I'm working on it just to do a comparison between them all. But this will be my first time bagging on a three-wheeler, so we'll see how this thing handles with that tire on the back there and that wide front end. It's got two 25s up front and a 255 rear section, which is pretty good. It's plenty of grip for what this thing has. Could use a 275 rear section because this thing smokes it all the way through second gear and chirps it into third. Even with traction control on, it'll still spin quite a bit. This one has the traction control permanently enabled just as a rental, just so people don't shut it off and don't burn off the back tire like the last guy did. So it will be on today, which is fine by me, especially with that tire and especially with not being that familiar with this ride. It's hilarious. My absolute favorite part of this thing is the looks you get. People will literally go out of their way to pull up next to you and give you a thumbs up and, you know, scream something at you. Usually a good thing, especially again with all the Batman stickers on this thing. It's quite a hoot to drive, just visually as it is too. The steering feel is pretty good. It's pretty direct. There is a bit of a delay off center. It's not too bad though. Yeah, I quite enjoy the shifter on this thing actually. You can get used to it really quickly. Rev matching is super simple with it. It's a quick blip of the throttle. It's a very responsive motor and throttle mapping, and I'm assuming it probably has a lighter flywheel on it. But it's just a quick stab of the throttle and you can drop it into pretty much any gear. I would say the first thing, if I ever owned this thing, would be one, I would probably do something with the brakes if possible. They're great once the pressure's applied, but they're quite numb upon initial press. They feel inadequate at first, but once they warm up and once you apply more pressure, they do stop pretty well. But I think a set of aftermarket pads would do wonders for this thing. It's not the sexiest sounding motor in the world, you know, given it is just a little 2.4 dual overhead cam 4. It's got a nice little grunt at the low RPMs, and it does have good low end torque. I'm in 4th and honestly could stay there from probably 70 all the way up to 130 if I wanted to. It's a pretty tall gear, but it's got plenty of pull. It doesn't sound that good in the higher RPMs, but I have heard these with an aftermarket pipe on them, and they do sound pretty damn good. One thing you do have to be mindful of is that the back tire is right in the middle. So when you're going to straddle road bumps or potholes, it doesn't really work because your back tire ends up clipping them. You have to take a whole new approach to this and take some getting used to. It does have fully adjustable seats though, which is nice. It does cater to more than just, you know, a few different body sizes. I'm 5'6", and I bet you could slide this seat all the way up to someone who's around 5 foot tall. But it will fit someone 6'4", 6'5" pretty easily too. The seats are made of rubber, so they're a little sweaty, they're a little slippery, but it is all weather, so you know, you give some, you take some. Now that we're out on the highway, I'm doing 105 right now, and even with these little windshields here, I'm short, so the wind goes straight over my head. My tall, long-legged friend here might feel otherwise, but I'll ask him when we're stopped. I'd really like to see how this thing would do on a long distance drive, you know, 3-4 hours and further, just to see how it would feel. I think you'd be pretty good in it. You know, we're in t-shirts and jeans, and it's a relatively sunny day out. The whole interior is waterproof also, which is kind of cool. If you ever got caught in the rain, it would suck so much to be stuck in the rain, but it'd be a cool road trip vehicle. It's pretty comfortable so far. And it rides nice. Like, this isn't the best road, and it feels pretty good. This also looks like the Decepticons emblem. Beep, boop, boop, beep. Autobots, transform. In my humble opinion, it's got plenty of power, but I find myself wishing it had more. The torque curve's kind of flat through the mid-range. So as I've driven this thing more and more, I've learned to love more things and not necessarily like some things. More good than bad, that's for sure. It's an absolute blast to drive. The handling is just so unique. It has its own character to it with that one wheel in the back. If you tend to forget about it, to be honest. You tend to forget that there's one little wheel that's trying to keep up with this wide front end, but it does really well. It's got pretty good power. I would personally like maybe another 25 horse out of it. It's plenty. It's plenty for what most people are going to be using this thing for. I think it's just such a great idea to build one of these. You know, it's exhilarating like a motorcycle would be, and more so than a car, but in its own way. Plus you get the practicality of having 2 seats. So if you and your wife or your girlfriend or whatever, your lover, want to go on a ride together and not be stuck on the back of a Goldwing or a Harley or a motorbike, you have something that you can both sit comfortably in, have your own space. It's got 2 cup holders, it's got a cubby. You can get it with, you know, the stereo in the S model. There is different windshields that you can order. You can get it in 2 different colors. The S is red, I believe. And it's just a smart design. It's simple. It really doesn't look like it's got too much mechanics going on that anything could go wrong. It's weatherproof. I can't imagine it would be that enjoyable in the rain, but what open vehicle is fun in the rain? What else do I like? The looks that it gets, it's probably one of the best part. People just love this thing. It just puts a smile on people's faces. Kids love it, adults love it, guys, girls, it doesn't matter. Everybody loves the look of the Slingshot. I do wish it had better brakes. It is something that I find needs to be improved upon. This is their first year, keep in mind. Whether it's just a different set of brake pads or a complete brake upgrade, I feel that it needs to be done. It's completely safe, don't get me wrong. It's just when you're in more high-speed situations and emergency braking, it would be nice to have a little bit more confidence in that. Apparently it's pretty good on fuel too. The range on the gauge cluster says you get about 420k from a full tank, and I'm sure that gets better maybe with just pure highway driving. It's geared quite well for the power that it has. 5th gear is definitely more of an overdrive. But it is comfortable. We've been booting around in this thing for a couple hours now. You know, I can't really complain about the comfort side of it. Even my big friend here, he's 6'3" and a bigger guy, and he's not really complaining about it too much. It's texting. Oh my God, reception came back. Thank God. I've missed everybody so much. You do need a motorcycle license to drive this, which I thought was kind of weird at first, considering there's literally nothing that resembles a motorcycle in this aside of the back tire, and even then that doesn't. It drives like a car. It's the same rules as a car, and you can't take your license in this to get your motorcycle license, so that's a little confusing for me, but nonetheless, for 20 grand I really don't think you can find much more fun out of a unique vehicle. You could buy a used S2000 or a Miata or a used Roadster and have that same kind of effect, but it is very different having one wheel and basically an open cage, and you can basically touch the ground with the thing. It's just a very unique experience, and I do suggest everyone tries it. It's pretty damn cool. And it's very easy to drive, so anybody could really drive it. And you find yourself waving at everybody. People love it. Overall, I really enjoy this thing. I think it's well worth 20 grand if you've got to spend it. It's quick, it's agile, it handles good. It's an absolute blast to drive. It's just such a unique experience. Seats are pretty comfortable. It's weatherproof. It seats too pretty comfortably. It's got cup holders, cubbies, glove box. adjustable seats, little windshield. It's got great mirrors. You can see right past you. It's good on fuel. I've been bagging on it all day, and it still says I have 187K left. It's got traction control. The only gripe I have is the brakes. I think it could use some better brakes, especially if you're going to be driving spirited. It's a good time for everybody. Even just a quick boot around the city, the smiles that it gives people is worth it alone. It's a great time. I'd suggest anybody to try it out. That's the beauty of rentals. It's about 265 Canadian a day to rent this. I suggest it. It's a good time. Thanks, Slingshot. Thanks.